We have this Blumenaur Trinet thing here. Advancing Women in Transportation. Anyway, Trinet or TriMet did this, I don't know, this thing with Blumenaur, and they sponsored it at TriMet. And let's see what it is. Let's check it out.
35th year this year. Also joining us are special guests representing local agencies who will be asking the congressman questions and maybe fielding some questions from the congressman himself.
The congressman!
Please wave so the audience knows who you are.
He's been there forever, man. That guy's fucking been there forever.
Brown, Oregon Transportation Commissioner who has served as the general manager for Rose Valley Transportation District for 13 years and has been a district employee for 24 years. Dee Brookshire, Executive Director of Finance and Administration, CFO for TriMet.
Oh.
And Millicent Williams, Deputy Director of Portland Bureau of Transportation.
Oh, all the big shot fucking
Thank you all
technocrats.
for joining us today.
Technocrats and politicians, man.
We find ourselves as the nation that has been worst hit by COVID-19, with a staggering total of 75,163 lives reported lost since February 29th, which is likely an undercount due to lack of testing. This virus has struck our most vulnerable populations the worst: the elderly, essential workers, low-income communities, and people of color, particularly African Americans. And we have over 33.5 million laid-off workers. Now focusing on transportation locally. After these stay-at-home and other social distancing orders went into effect, we saw a drop in traffic volume.
Here's Blumenaur's resume. He has been, let's see, before he became a congressman, he spent 20 years as a public official from Portland, serving on the city council from 1987 to 1996. So this guy has been a political hack since 1986, and he's been elected to the House in 1996, and he's been there ever since. And I guess he'll be there forever because, you know, he wears his bicycle pin.
Volumes of about 40% across the state. The most recent week saw an average reduction of 32% in traffic.
Oh yeah, he's part of the light rail mafia too, by the way. That's one of his gigs. Is the light rail mafia, and he's very good at getting money for it.
Traffic volumes overall compared to the previous year. It appears that traffic volumes may be increasing slowly.
How long is this?
ODOT's April 2020 revenue forecast was developed and released early in the public health crisis before sufficient data were available to make a firm forecast of the pandemic impact on revenue.
Speaking.
The forecast predicts a $125 million reduction in state highway revenue. State highway fund revenue between March 2020 and June 2021. A drop-off of about 6% compared to last October's forecast.
Oh, yep.
This will increase if the economic impacts of the pandemic extend longer than
Transportation planning business.
Forecast. This lost revenue will be shared between ODOT and local governments who receive close to half of the state highway fund. ODOT's share of the revenue is about $67 million, which is split between funds dedicated to transportation projects and funds that cover the cost of operating the agency and maintaining roads.
Hold on. Susie Malik has been a transportation planning consultant with CH2M Hill. She's part of the fucking complex, of course. See, that's that government private enterprise fucking revolving door. You see it all over government. You know, the ones that get the money go into government, and then the ones that go into government go into the private. Yeah, this revolving door scam that we the people live with this scam, and she's part of that. Just so you know, I'm just telling you. So
This is thankfully a relatively limited amount in the scope of ODOT's $2 billion annual budget. And at this point, ODOT does not anticipate significant impacts to funding following the project, flowing to projects. Declines are also predicted for payroll tax revenues, which fund the public transportation STIP program. And TriMet has seen a decline of ridership of roughly 90%, is my understanding. And PBOT.
No, you're wrong. They just posted their figures, and their ridership decline was 35%. So you're a little bit off there, Sumi. Okay, that's right out of TriMet's figures themselves. Ridership has declined 35%, not 90%. Alrighty? Come on, Sumi. Get your shit together.
To me, a decline in parking revenues of roughly 80%. And I'm sure our representatives can elaborate on the situation with their bureaus or agencies.
Where's the ridership, man? Let me look at this.
It is with this somber information as context that Congressman Blumenaur will address us. We are grateful for you spending time with us this evening, knowing you have many competing demands. We hope you will address what Congress is developing to stabilize local governments and transit agencies. We were hoping that would have been a greater part of the most recent relief package. And we look forward to also hearing your priorities for economic recovery through transportation and infrastructure investments. Welcome, Congressman Blumenaur.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate the hospitality and the chance for us to visit this afternoon.
No, I don't want that.
And we're having this conversation in a context that has no precedent.
All right, here's the official TriMet statistics. Monthly system-wide ridership decreased 31.6% in March compared to prior year's level. Passenger revenue decreased 23%. System cost per boarding ride, I don't know why they give us that figure. So the boarding rides decreased, weekly boarding rides decreased 32%. Weekly boarding rides decreased 30% on bus. Wait a minute, decreased 30%, 34% on Max, and 41% on West. That's not 90%.
Taking a step back for a moment, and I am convinced that the notion of the economic freefall that we are in is not likely to change anytime soon. I think
which doesn't affect any of these people, by the way. The economic freefall does not affect anybody that's on this panel here or Blumenaur himself. Just noting that. So you understand.
Going to be in the middle of this for the next 30 months. I think the economic prospects are going to continue to deteriorate in the near term.
No shit.
And it's the combination of the threat to health, to our democracy, where you look around the country, changes that are taking place, battling some of the most fundamental questions, like what we recently saw in Wisconsin, forcing people to vote in the most, just unimaginable circumstances. Having fundamental battles over how we're going to move forward with the election itself. We have, and I don't mean to be unduly partisan, but the guy in the White House is posing amazing challenges to this country in terms of 2 months of being sort of AWOL, addressing the COVID crisis.
We don't want to talk about Trump here. Don't talk about him. What does that have to do with anything?
Full program moving forward. The things that are offered, Clorox chewables,
Oh,
to
Jesus.
help protect
He's gonna
against
go
the
into the
coronavirus.
Trump shit. Okay. We don't want to hear this right
the,
now. I want to hear the facts. The
Coronavirus Task
facts.
Force was abolished yesterday and then reinstated the next day. This is really unnerving. But what's happening now is actually the greatest challenge that the United States has faced. I think it's even greater than the Great Depression. Bear in mind,
Yeah, not yet, but it will
2
be.
months ago, we had some of the best unemployment statistics. It took us a long time to recover from the Great Recession.
Which
But
only
we did.
affected
Very low
these
unemployment.
depressions, recessions only affect the bottom level people. You do understand. There's so much stuff these people get up here and they talk. They don't tell you the whole truth. These recessions only affect the bottom line people. If you recall, McFarland got a raise during that. We lost our health benefits. Okay, the what the fuck? What the hell's that? I don't know what happened there. It's called McFarland. My phone just called McFarland for no reason. I didn't press anything. Anyway, we're back to
robust prospects. And in a matter of less than 3 months, that's evaporated. In the last 6 weeks, we've had over 30 million Americans apply for unemployment.
Yeah, let's get that straight how that happened. That happened as a result of government closing up everything. That wasn't the virus that created this. This is government that created this. Okay, and they didn't do like European governments and continue the payrolls for 80% of the payroll. People in northern European countries, they were all told to stay home, but they got 80% of their paycheck until they can go back to work. They didn't do that here, of course.
And we're seeing whole sectors of our economy unraveling. In Portland, we have prided ourselves with the restaurant and food scene, music venues. I'm afraid that we're going to see a third to a half of those restaurants close permanently, with no clear path about how it's going to come back. At the same time, we've witnessed remarkable upheavals in the global petroleum market. For a while there was a negative price for oil, something we've not seen.
And that only happens because of something called futures contracts. That's not a real thing that we actually get paid. That's the financial markets bullshit. That doesn't apply to any of us here. Okay, that's something they say on the news, but it has no real. I mean, gas didn't go down to zero, did it? That's got to do with this whole financialization of our world. Everything's financialized now, which is why we're going to end up dead soon because of this fucking ridiculous system we live in. Not just us, the whole world lives under this system.
Depression took 3 years to get to the unemployment levels that we did in a little over 3 weeks. These are unprecedented.
Yeah, and that's because
activities.
of government.
The Great Depression had remarkable economic upset, but they weren't dealing with a pandemic at the same time.
No, they were just dealing with financial corruption. And I want to point out about the Great Depression. The there was no billionaires then, but there was plenty of millionaires. And they all lost their shirt too, except for the very, very top oligarchs. But the millionaires lost too. There was no Fed to print money. Okay, so that's the big difference between what's happening now and what happened then. What's happening now, there's a mechanism in place to make sure the rich stay rich at the expense of the rest of us.
And we didn't have Huey Long in the White House without any of his endearing characteristics. We are looking at the most divided government in Washington, D.C., that any of us have seen. There's such a stark difference between what's going on in the House and the Senate and the two parties. During the Depression, people were coming together. There was mobilization. We're not seeing that at this point. We're seeing divisions that are being accelerated. And this is playing out in the midst of dramatic changes in terms of technology, in terms of the economy, the collapse of retail, for instance. We've got all of these pieces that are at play in terms of the public realm, in terms of how we do business, in terms of how we work.
Okay, I want to see DJ
I had
Shire.
a fascinating conversation earlier this week with representatives of Portland's design community and construction, trying to figure out what our project's going to look like in the future. How are we going to work?
How about you don't have any projects in the future? How about you stop those projects? Okay, and concentrate on what people need.
Or are we going to come back to levels of air traffic that's even remotely what we had 2 months ago? The reference here, a 90% reduction for TriMet in terms of
It's not 90%, it's 35%.
The challenges of trying to bring that back in a way that's safe and stable, dealing with public perceptions and confidence, and of course, dealing with the public health needs. We don't have a vaccine for this virus. I anticipate that most of us on this call are going to have personal experience with the virus, and maybe half of us will get it over the course of the next couple of years. These are areas that we're trying to address major changes in government, in how we do business, in what happens with the public realm, how we relate to one another. The public health infrastructure is challenged. I don't want to paint too gloomy a picture here, but I don't want to sugarcoat anything.
Okay, Earl, we got the point.
Totally in uncharted waters with the recovery.
Not for you. You're going to be fine.
Need to do to deal with the public
health.
As I
said, everybody. As I said, it's important to understand. Everybody in this chat is not going to be affected by any of this, unless the economy rolls over and the currency collapses, and then $1 billion of helicopter money maybe will get you a loaf of bread, which could happen, by the way.
Do with the economic fallout that is accelerating, and I think is going to be with us, as I said, for the better part of the next 30 months.
That? Let's see.
In that context, infrastructure, I think, looms large.
What do you mean by that?
A number of stresses and changes that we'll be working on. We'll try and figure out how we relate to them, how we harness those efforts, and where we go from here with the public realm, with
the built environment,
with how we're going to deal with transportation fundamentals. As we, on a day like this, as I go through Northeast Portland, talking to myself like a crazy man, I carry my cell phone and hold it up occasionally so people don't think I'm delusional.
What?
But it's really interesting watching people using that public space in ways that has been the dream of some people in terms of rediscovering, redeploying out in the neighborhoods, people walking, even with social distancing. It's changing how we're related.
Okay, come on, move along.
I wrote an essay on Earth Day that was picked up by...
All right, nice, Earl.
My hope is that we will use this opportunity to do things that we should have been doing for years.
Like what?
The public health infrastructure is going to be rebuilt. The fact that we don't have
What's Paul?
supply
What are you
chains
talking
for
about?
fundamental medical devices, equipment, pharmaceuticals anymore in the United States.
Yeah.
We rely on China and India.
It's smart.
Hard questions are being asked about just-in-time delivery. Our food system is simply not sustainable when it is stressed. One meat packing plant producing 4% of the pork supply.
No, 40%.
For a foreign country, by the way, who owns it.
You said 4%.
We're going to have to reassess the
Yes, Earl. We'll keep going.
of what has happened in your 35-year history that I've worked with you here in Portland. You have helped us.
God, he's a politician. I can't stand politicians.
Probably should stop at this point.
Yeah, good. Stop.
Because
I really want to hear Dee's what I want to hear.
Hearing your thoughts and observations. I'd be happy to try and answer questions if I may. But this is a unique time for us. This is an opportunity for us to do.
Do you have any idea what's going to happen here? He doesn't know. Well, maybe he does know. But I mean, this economic collapse hasn't started yet. It's down the road.
Things that wouldn't have been possible even a few weeks ago. At the beginning of this year in Congress, debates over access to affordable child care and paid sick leave were controversial. I don't think they're that controversial anymore.
There's never going to be mandated health care in this country or universal health care because Americans are
protecting public health and then trying to move forward with a new vision of how.
All right, keep going. I don't want to listen to this spiel.
Another, to look at different ways of doing things, sharing.
Yeah, it's okay. All right. Come on. Come on.
Thank you, Congressman Blumenaur, for your insights. And just a correction to what I had said earlier, I must have had some dated information, but apparently ridership is actually only down. TriMet ridership is only down 65 to about 70.
No, you're wrong. She's wrong again. It's better, but you're wrong again. It's 35. I've got the official figures. I don't know how they can be right about that, 35%, but that's what they say.
8%. I'll go ahead and I'll kick us off with the first question.
As if we've seen buses in that rail.
I know. I was kind of surprised, and perhaps Executive Director Brookshire can give us the correct information. I live downtown, and I've been seeing them empty, honestly.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
As you know, the DBE and MWESB small business community is a critical part of our industry in the transportation delivery. What metrics or oversight does Congress have in place to ensure small business loans or grants are indeed going to small businesses? And will there be any priority given in the future to certify DBE MWESB firms?
All right. Well, it's maybe the Oregon didn't go into lockdown until March 23rd, so the April figures may be the ones to look for here. Okay, the April might be 75%. Okay, now we got that clear.
Well, first of all, you have seen some real challenges with the first several $1 trillion that were rolled out. There, frankly, was too much given to the wrong people. The big banks appeared to give sort of concierge service to larger customers who, frankly, didn't need it as much, maybe didn't need it at all. Some businesses moving in to secure these loans that we predicated this on for small businesses and the big restaurant chains. And it's just really distressing. The Trump administration has undercut our efforts at oversight. Trump fired the independent watchdog
Yes.
an inspector general who was supposed to be chairing the oversight. And there's
There's no help from the Republicans. We already know that. Americans like the Republicans. If they want this corrupt system, and people will vote for Trump, so this is what they get. So stop complaining about it. This is what Americans want. Let them have it. This is what they want. You know, they have this, as long as you have a fucking morally bankrupt presidential election system called the Electoral College, you're going to get bozos. Not that fucking Clinton would have been much better, other than she wouldn't have been such a, I don't want to get into politics here. Fuck
and some of these people, and
I don't want to hear your politics.
The committee that has been set up, that is chaired by Jim Clyburn.
Look, government's not going to help us. I want to see Dean Brookshire.
Director Brookshire from TriMet. One, maybe you can help clarify what ridership is currently, and I know you have some questions, and perhaps the congressman has some questions for you as well.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Congressman Blumenaur, for your long and consistent support of transit, transportation in general.
Here we go. See how these technocrats, all of these people are connected in the technocracy. Blumenaur makes sure the money keeps flowing. D. Brookshire, fucking Kelsey, and all the rest of these executives take that money. It's all part of a system that works collaboratively. And people like this Sumi Malik, she was in Sage 2M Hill, who gets all these contracts from TriMet. So you see, it all works together.
In public transit in particular, TriMet and the region owe you a tremendous debt of gratitude for all you've done in the region, and we really appreciate that.
You're great.
Question for you today. Well, first of all, let me clear up the ridership thing. Our statistics are talking about a blended average ridership. So it was very consistently at 70%, a loss of 70% of ridership on bus and rail.
Well, where is that? Why do your figures not say that? Why do I have different figures? Why does your website show different figures? Okay, I can show it to you.
It popped up to a loss of 66% on last Friday, and it's now running between 69 and 68%. Still a tremendous.
So why does it say that? Why doesn't it say that here?
So my question for you is regarding TriMet Metro and our regional partners' possible planned November transportation ballot measure. So with the impacts of COVID on the economy, do you expect any changes in FTA related to increasing the federal share of small and new starts projects?
See this right here? 31%.
Well, a couple of months ago, I led a letter to my friend and colleague, Peter DeFazio, and his ranking member, asking them to double the federal match for both programs in the surface reauthorization legislation.
What now? I missed the question.
There's a possible planned November transportation ballot measure. So with the impacts of COVID on the economy, do you expect any changes in FTA related to increasing the federal share of small and new?
See, this idiot and these technocrats are going to move ahead with that. And that Southwest corridor has very mild support. And that was before all this mess. I can't imagine that passing. I just can't imagine it passing. It just does not make sense to me at all. So what her question is about the federal match. That's not going. You're not going to get anything.
Starts projects?
Well, a couple months ago, I led a letter to my friend and colleague, Peter DeFazio, and his ranking member, asking them to double the federal match for both programs in the surface reauthorization legislation. It's not clear that we're going to actually get a reauthorization at this point.
Okay, you heard him. You're not going to get shit out of the Trump administration for this, okay? I said this a year ago about all of this. I was talking about, number one, I was talking about an economic collapse coming, and it came. They disguised it. They collapsed it when they had the opportunity, which was coronavirus gave these oligarchs cover for crashing the economy. And I said, you know, I knew this was coming. I knew this. Nobody listens to Al. He's a crazy man. And they're not going to get any federal money. They need to stop this thing right now. They've wasted hundreds of millions on it already.
the activity of the committees have been disrupted, to say the very least. And we saw in the Senate, they went in a separate direction that's much less ambitious than what Peter's working on. But I am convinced that there will be some stimulus proposal that will include infrastructure in the next few months. It's not going to be in the next package. We can talk about priorities there. I mean, well, I can just say it now. The next package is going to focus on trying to stabilize resources for state, local government, and education, because they're just being hammered, and they're looking at how they can move forward, being in the crossfire of all of this work. So there is a very ambitious program that is going to be advanced by the House Democrats.
Yeah, and it's not going to
focus,
and it's not going to get through the Senate, and Trump won't sign it. Okay, you're not going to get anything from the Republicans in the Senate, and people vote for them. So that's the way it goes. Okay, they don't want public. They don't want universal health care. They want to get rid of Medicare. They want to get rid of everything that they get. That's what Americans want. So I say, let them have what they want. Get rid of all so-called entitlements. Let Americans just have nothing, because that's what they want.
On helping get substantially increased resources to the state, local, and to education. We want to have...
Yeah, it's called helicopter money. They print it. They print it. And when this thing finally collapses, man, it's going to be a fucking doozy, man. When you need $20,000 to get a loaf of bread, you'll see the end of it. We're going to collapse exactly like the Soviet Union did. We're going down the exact same path.
More flexibility for some of the money that's already been allocated to deal with the coronavirus. That was the price that was extracted by the Senate Republicans was very narrow definition, that it had to strictly be related to the coronavirus.
Of course, the Republicans represent like 1/3 of the country. If you actually counted up voters, the Democrats are the majority, but the founding finaglers, as I call them, because they were rich white men intent on making sure the public was kept out of the process of government here, set up a system so that the public would be stymied from ever taking control. And that's where they came up with the Senate, which grants a piece of land. A piece of land has 2 votes, even if nobody lives there. And a place like California, where everybody lives, gets 2 votes, and a place like fucking Rhode Island gets 2 votes, even though they're completely different. And most of the land mass is controlled by the red party. The Southern strategy is the Republicans. Abortion. What is it? There's 3 things. They went for they appealed to the racists to get people to vote for their party, the Republicans. That's how they got people to vote for them, because if people actually understood that the Republicans are actually a party of the rich, nobody would vote for them. So they went ahead with, well, we don't believe in segregation. We don't believe in gay rights. We don't believe in all those things. And a lot of Americans don't believe in those, so they vote for the Republican, even though the Republican is stabbing them in the back. Americans are so emotionally attached to their issue that they vote to kill themselves. So I say, kill them all. You vote for the red, you get the red, man. And you'll pay. The first people that will die will be all the hillbillies that voted red, because they'll have nothing. All the blue states have all the money anyway, really. Okay, that's where all the money is.
And they didn't anticipate all of the consequences that would cascade out. So I think there's some interest in giving state and local governments more flexibility and over how they allocate them, how they use the money that they've already been given. But we're going to be pushing for maximum flexibility and to reduce the pressure on local jurisdictions, on the state, on transit agencies, because at this point, match requirements are extraordinarily difficult. I would say unrealistic at exactly the time we need to make sure that we don't lose momentum. For example, in this region, I am really excited about what has happened.
What do you mean you don't lose momentum? You've lost the momentum. See, that's a politician, okay? It's already over. Okay, it's over. How many hundreds, thousands of people are unemployed in Oregon now? It's over. There is no momentum. Okay, he's a politician talking bullshit.
On the funding proposal, you have a terrific blueprint for what expenditure should be in the region. And so if we're able to get the funding that I would like to see, we've got a blueprint to use it. And we've got things now that are, if not shovel ready, they're certainly pencil ready. And I think can move with dispatch. But we're trying to maximize.
I don't know what he's talking about. Oregon unemployment is 362,000, which is twice that of the so-called Great Recession, which was just the Great Realigning. That was the excuse they used to break union contracts, take away benefits. So since the outbreak, since that happened, there's 362,000 people. And at the peak of the recession, there was 147. So it's more than double that now. Okay. So he says, we don't want to lose the momentum. The momentum's already lost. It's over, you fucker.
Flexibility, minimize the impact. And that's something where there's been, I think, a growing acceptance, even in the Senate.
What date is this?
Great, thanks so much. You spoke a little bit.
I want to know why
she
says it's 70%.
And I wanted to follow up on that. Do you think that in light of the difficulties in securing local match, that consideration could be given to increasing the federal maximum for small starts from 100 million to 200 million?
Yes.
What's the date on this?
Thank you.
Okay, so this presentation came in on. So these people must be talking about the April figures, which are not published yet, because it's not what March figures said. And I got this was sent to me on May 15th. So they have the figures, they just haven't published them.
Okay. Shall I continue, Simi? Or?
Well, actually, I'd like to turn the floor over. Thank you for asking. And also for those in the audience, if you would like to submit questions via chat, please do so at this time. And Tara will be sorting through them, and she'll be sending those to me to read aloud. So with that, Commissioner Brown, do you have a question that you would like to ask the Congressman?
Who's she?
Congressman Blumenaur. It's been many years. I didn't have gray hair the last time you saw me. So.
Neither did I.
Actually, you answered some of my questions, but I know that our local and state government is really concerned about the gas tax and what's happening, and also the reauthorization and moving forward. And although we're not seeing the impacts from COVID yet on any of our projects that we have going on, but we're looking at the future. And so you kind of talked about, you didn't look like there's going to be a reauthorization in this next bill. But we do want to keep pushing forward, making sure that, I know that AASHTO has requested that Congress double size of the federal aid highway program, and for a period of 6 years. And they're hoping that the priority on reauthorization
this woman
keeps continuing forward. Do you
this
think
woman it's an ODOT committee, Oregon Transportation Commission, and she's on that committee, and she was 24 years of the Rogue Valley Transportation District. Brown has served as president of the Oregon Transit and served on a number of ODOT committees. I don't know, some career thing.
Well,
I think the odds are encouraging. Peter DeFazio has done a great job establishing a base to move forward. The Senate went off on their own with a much more limited bill, much shorter duration, no funding mechanism. But we want to make sure, my goal on the Ways and Means Committee is to get at least $1 trillion to Peter to be able to spend on infrastructure broadly defined, not just transit roads, bridges, Amtrak. We need to be dealing with broadband, which we're finding out is essential infrastructure, particularly for rural and small town Oregon. But I'll tell you, as we have families all over the community who are trying to teach their kids online, and we have, in my household, we were having 3 sets of Zoom meetings concurrently. These are serious investments that we need to make. The reauthorization becomes a little more challenging because there's going to be a lot of competition moving forward. I think we are better off probably having a big, robust stimulus legislation that includes infrastructure broadly and uses as its point of departure work that Peter has done preparing for reauthorization.
In other words, they want to turn the money over to local technocracy and let them do what they want with it. Okay, that's what he's talking about here. Okay. You know, these people are all corrupt. I hate to say that, but I sincerely believe it. They're all corrupt. They're all technocrats. Politicians, number one. I don't believe any politician, including this guy. And then these people are all career technocrats, which means they're in another world from the rest of us. These are the people that our lives are in their hands, and that's scary.
I don't care how we get there, as long as we have the magnitude of investment and we're investing in the right things.
How do you know what that is?
Whether we're talking about electrification of our transportation system.
What are you talking
about? I think we should.
Why don't you see, they're not talking about keeping transit moving. You notice that? They're not talking about making sure the buses keep rolling. You know, they've already cut like 1/3 of the services, maybe more. He's not talking about any of that. He hasn't mentioned it once. Getting the transit system back to where it was in operational capacity. That should be the priority, getting the transit system moving back again. Okay, I don't want to hear any, the ridership is down. Okay, you can't get ridership if you don't offer service. You know, this is some hack shit here.
With what's going to happen with helping people cope with the changes that are taking place in just transportation fundamentals. How much more expensive it's going to be for transit systems, large and small.
What they need to do, okay, I'll tell you what they need to do, and I'm not going to listen to the rest of this because I'm tired of it. What they need to do is all the money that's lost in tax revenue and in fare revenue needs to go to TriMet to keep everything status quo. Now, how much have they lost? Okay, they've lost half of their, they were making $120 million a year on the fares. Well, I've always believed in fare-free transit. Well, we're never going to get that because we live in a neoliberal technocratic society. So they've lost, let's say they've lost the entire fares. Okay, make it fair for $120 million needs to go for that. And then they need to get rid of the capital projects. You know, this should be all oriented to people now. People, moving people. The capital projects is not going to do that. The capital projects are going to waste more money building shit that we absolutely don't need right now. Now, he's not mentioned it once, and he's not going to mention it. Because these people are cronies, and they're going to want to keep the pockets filled of the people that are involved in the capital projects mafia, of which TriMet is the leader in the Portland area.